People love to talk about where Americans are moving to. What nobody talks about is where they're moving back to. Every year, millions of Americans pack up, swear they're done with the state forever, and then quietly return like nothing happened, no announcement, no victory lap, just a moving truck and a lot of personal growth. These are the boomerang states, places people leave chasing upgrades, excitement, and better weather, only to realize stability, familiarity, and affordable normalcy were doing more work than they thought. In this video, we're breaking down the states Americans can't stay away from, the places that don't win on hype, don't trend on social media, but somehow pull former residents back once reality hits. If you've ever left a state thinking you leveled up and then wondered why life got harder, this list is for you. Number 10, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is where people leave because they're bored and come back because they're tired. The exit usually happens in someone's 20s or early 30s. Pennsylvania feels too quiet, too gray, too sensible. They want excitement, energy, a skyline that looks good in LinkedIn profile photos. So they move somewhere louder and more expensive and tell everyone they've outgrown Pennsylvania. Then real life shows up like a vendetta. Rent eats half their paycheck, parking costs money, groceries feel suspiciously luxurious. Walking anywhere requires strategy, patience, and occasionally forgiveness. Suddenly, Pennsylvania's unflashy cities start sounding better than they remember. Places where you can still live near downtown without selling plasma twice a week. Boomerang Pennsylvanians come back with a new respect for things they once rolled their eyes at. Not because those things suddenly got cooler, but because they stopped pretending cool was useful. They noticed streets that were designed for humans instead of traffic flow studies. Walking doesn't feel like a negotiation with speeding vehicles. Sidewalks actually connect places instead of giving up halfway like they lost interest. Getting around on foot feels normal, not like a lifestyle statement. They also start appreciating neighborhoods built before cars dictated every decision. Blocks make sense, houses face the street, stores exist near where people live. You don't need a vehicle strategy just to grab groceries. It's unsettling how functional everything feels once you stop expecting dysfunction. Porches stand out now, not as decor, but as proof someone once expected people to sit outside and talk to each other. No rule book, no approved color palette, no monthly email reminding you what kind of welcome mat is allowed. Just a place to exist without supervision. And then there's the history. Not curated, not themed, not explained with a chalkboard menu and ironic lighting. It's just there, worn in, unpolished, and unconcerned with whether anyone finds it charming. The buildings don't try to impress you. They've already outlived several trends. Boomerangs realized Pennsylvania never needed reinvention. It already worked. They didn't come back because it changed. They came back because they did. Boomerang Pennsylvanians come back noticing things they once mocked. Streets you can actually walk on. Neighborhoods built before cars took over urban planning. Houses with porches instead of HOA bylaws. History that exists naturally instead of being recreated on a brewery wall with exposed brick and a font choice. Pennsylvania doesn't chase trends, it lets them burn out somewhere else. It just waits, unchanged, affordable, and quietly smug. It's not glamorous. No one brags about discovering Pennsylvania, but it lasts. And once the novelty wears off and the spreadsheets come out, durability beats excitement every single time. Pennsylvania isn't exciting when you're young. It's comforting when you're honest. 4.3% of people leaving Pennsylvania came back within 5 years. Number 9, the show me state. Missouri. Missouri is not a dream. It's not a vibe. It's not a place kids dream about moving to. Missouri is what happens when real life taps you on the shoulder and asks if you've checked your bank account lately. People leave Missouri convinced they're upgrading their lives. Bigger cities, bigger salaries, louder energy. They move somewhere that feels important and immediately start paying for that feeling by the square foot. At first it's exciting. New skyline, new coffee shops, new rent that somehow costs more than their old mortgage. Then the novelty wears off and Missouri starts creeping back into their thoughts. Quietly uninvited and annoyingly logical. When you grow up and start to realize life isn't really what you see on Instagram, you understand a state like Missouri isn't a bad option. It didn't pretend to be cutting edge. It didn't try to be the next big thing for tech startups or an AI frontrunner. It just worked. Housing was attainable, commutes were survivable, a pizza wasn't more than a monthly power bill. Life moved forward without constant financial gymnastics and dry heaving with every rent increase. Boomerang Missourians don't come back with stories. They don't hype it up. They don't try to sell the decision. They come back calm, which is how you know it was the right move. They return practical, focused, slightly embarrassed by how complicated they made life somewhere else. The drama is gone. The urgency is gone. What's left is common sense, the kind Missouri quietly installs early and never advertises. They stop chasing whatever they were chasing. Not because they failed, but because they realized success doesn't have to feel like constant maintenance. Missouri didn't promise transformation. It offered a baseline that worked. And somehow, that became more appealing with age. Missouri didn't change while they were gone. Streets didn't rearrange themselves. Towns didn't rebrand. The rhythm stayed the same. And instead of feeling stuck, that consistency feels grounding, like something solid you can lean on without it shifting underneath you. The homecoming isn't dramatic. It doesn't need to be. It's steady. It's familiar. It works. And after living somewhere that demanded constant adjustment, Missouri's refusal to change starts to feel intentional. That's not a flaw. That's the feature. Nobody gushes about Missouri. Nobody romanticizes it. They just nod and say, yeah, this makes sense. I'm glad I am back. And that's Missouri's entire brand. Not exciting, not cutting edge, just quietly comfortable once adulthood kicks in. 4.3% of people leaving Missouri came back within 5 years. Number 8, Ohio. The Buckeye residents don't usually leave because something went wrong. They leave because they think something better must exist. Ohio feels too normal, too flat, too functional. Surely mediocrity can be escaped if you drive far enough and increase your rent. So they go. Big city, bigger promises, next chapter energy. Ohio, they decide, was holding them back. And then they discover a harsh truth. Mediocrity is nationwide. It's just packaged differently. In other states, mediocrity comes with gridlock, $3,000 one-bedrooms, and an attitude. You still have the same grocery stores, the same offices, the same Tuesday afternoons, but now it takes 90 minutes to get anywhere and costs twice as much to exist while doing it. Ohio, meanwhile, never tried to be impressive. It built jobs, it built hospitals, it built roads that go where they're supposed to. Cities operate without needing a constant rebrand or a new slogan every year. You can live near where you work, and you can park your car without a financial plan. Boomerang Ohioans come back with a weird new superpower. They notice functional things. After living somewhere else, they start appreciating commutes that don't require emotional preparation. In Ohio, driving to work doesn't feel like a daily test of patience, survival instincts, and podcast endurance. You get in the car, you go, you arrive, no bargaining with traffic, no mysterious 40-minute delays caused by nothing. Then there's the infrastructure. A light rain doesn't trigger a citywide crisis meeting. Snow shows up and, shockingly, gets handled. Not with press conferences or inspirational messaging, but with plows, actual plows, on schedule. Healthcare hits even harder. In Ohio, hospitals feel like they were built to heal people, not beta test a system still in development. Appointments exist, specialists answer phones, emergency rooms operate like emergencies are expected, not surprising. It's unsettling how normal it all is. Ohio didn't reinvent itself while they were gone. It didn't add a slogan. It didn't declare itself the next big thing. It just kept working quietly in the background while other states focused on vibes. And once you've lived somewhere where everything feels fragile, Ohio's reliability stops looking boring and starts feeling like a competitive advantage. And that's when it clicks. Ohio doesn't sell excitement. It doesn't promise transformation. It doesn't care if you're living your best life. Ohio offers something much rarer, a life that doesn't fight you every day. Ohio doesn't pull people back with hype. It pulls them back with math, time, and a sudden appreciation for things that simply work. That's why people leave Ohio confidently and come back quietly, pretending it was the plan all along. 4.4% of people leaving Ohio came back within 5 years. Number 7, North Carolina. First of all, knowing what I know about the stats of North Carolina, I know not many people are leaving the Tar Heel state. It is one of the most moved to states we got. That's probably why it made this list. North Carolina is where people leave without really meaning to. Nobody storms out of North Carolina. There's no dramatic exit speech. People just assume they can do better. Bigger city, faster pace, more opportunities. The grass has to be greener somewhere else, right? So they go find it. Normally the hard way. And at first it looks greener. More lights, more energy, more things happening. Then the maintenance bill shows up, rent climbs, traffic becomes your personal nemesis. Jobs come with stress baked in. Growth turns out to mean longer hours, tighter margins, and the constant feeling that you're one layoff away from a lifestyle downgrade, which is always a good time. Meanwhile, North Carolina just kept being reasonable. It had jobs, but not the soul-crushing kind. Solid, good-paying jobs. Not like Mississippi, where you work at Dollar General, Waffle House, or you get a government draw. They have scenery that doesn't require a 6-hour drive or a park reservation. Housing that didn't feel like a long-term financial prank. Towns that grew without collapsing under their own ambition. Nothing extreme, nothing fragile. Just a good place to live. Boomerang North Carolinians come back noticing things they barely registered before. You can live near where you work. Life doesn't feel like a constant optimization exercise. The biggest realization hits late. A lot of growth elsewhere was just stress wearing better marketing. North Carolina never tried to impress anyone. It didn't chase hype. It didn't promise transformation. It just quietly offered balance and let people underestimate it. North Carolina isn't flashy. It doesn't need to be, because comfort doesn't trend. It lasts. 4.5% of people leaving North Carolina came back within 5 years. Number 6, Michigan. Michigan leavers usually sound confident. Very confident. Michigan, they say, is cold, rusty, and past its prime. They talk like the state peaked in 1978 and everyone forgot to tell the weather. Leaving feels like escaping a bad reputation more than a bad reality. So they go somewhere better, which often turns out to mean crowded, expensive, and aggressively dry. Suddenly, water is a feature, not a guarantee. Beaches require parking apps, lakes are fenced, private, or owned by someone with a yacht and a lawyer. People talk about nature like it's a weekend activity instead of something that just exists. That's when Michigan starts making emotional sense again. Boomerang Michiganders come back with a brand new appreciation for things they used to take for granted, like water that doesn't require a reservation system. After living somewhere else, they realize how strange it is that in Michigan you could just walk up to a lake. No gate, no wristband, no HOA newsletter explaining which hours you're allowed to enjoy nature. You didn't need a beach club membership or a parking app that crashes right after charging you $12 for 5 minutes. The water was just there, doing water things, minding its business. They also remember space. Actual physical space. Not open concept space that costs extra, but room to breathe without paying a monthly premium. Yards that weren't decorative. Roads that didn't feel like competitive sports, silence that wasn't suspicious. In Michigan, space wasn't a luxury feature, it was just part of life. And then there are the seasons. Michigan seasons don't blend together like one endless overheated performance. They reset you. Winter ends, spring shows up, summer feels earned. Fall reminds you that time is moving, and that's okay. After living somewhere where it's the same temperature for 10 straight months, former residents realize their brain misses the variety, even the parts they complained about. Michigan didn't spoil them with luxury, it spoiled them with normal access to real things. And once you've lived somewhere that charges admission for nature, Michigan's lakes stop looking cold and start looking priceless. They also noticed something else. Michigan didn't freeze in time. While the jokes kept coming, the state quietly fixed things. Downtowns improved, neighborhoods stabilized, costs stayed sane. It didn't reinvent itself loudly. It just got better without asking for applause. Returning residents aren't chasing nostalgia, they're recalibrating. They understand now that decline isn't always real, and hype isn't always improvement. Michigan didn't change their mind overnight. Distance did. And once you've lived somewhere that charges you for access to nature, Michigan's comeback stops looking surprising and starts looking obvious. 4.6% of people leaving Michigan came back within 5 years. Number 5, Texas. The Lone Star State exits are rarely subtle. People don't just move out of Texas, they announce it. There's usually a speech about freedom, sanity, or getting out while we still can. The tone suggests Texas personally disappointed them. Then they move somewhere else and discover a shocking revelation. Every state has rules, they're just quieter about it. Permits still exist, taxes still show up, HOAs remain undefeated, and somehow customer service gets worse the further you get from Texas. Boomerang Texans don't come back waving flags or making speeches. There's no dramatic apology tour. They come back nodding, like someone who learned something the hard way and doesn't feel the need to explain it. They miss the scale, not the ego, the physical size of everything. roads wide enough to forgive mistakes, parking lots that don't require geometry, cities that spread outward instead of upward, where living doesn't feel like participating in a human shelving system. After living somewhere that treats personal space as an upgrade package, Texas feels oddly generous. They also missed how work functions here. In Texas, ambition isn't viewed suspiciously. Nobody asks you to tone it down or wait your turn. Wanting more doesn't require an apology or a manifesto. Jobs exist, businesses expand, effort still connects to outcome in a way that feels refreshingly straightforward. Former Texans return realizing how exhausting it is to live in places where progress requires permission and success feels slightly impolite. Texas doesn't overthink momentum, it just lets it happen and deals with the consequences later. They didn't come back because Texas is flawless. They came back because it's honest about what it is. And after living somewhere that constantly questions itself, that honesty feels like relief. Texas also has something subtle that's easy to overlook until it's gone. Confidence, not perfection, confidence. Texas acts like it knows what it is. It doesn't apologize for its size, its growth, or its contradictions. That certainty turns out to be comforting when you've lived somewhere that feels permanently unsure of itself. Returning Texans stop arguing ideology. Real life beat them. They want familiar roads, familiar attitudes, and a place where effort still feels rewarded. Texas doesn't promise ease, but it offers clarity. Texas isn't flawless, but it's predictable, and once you've lived somewhere unpredictable on purpose, predictability starts feeling like freedom. 4.9% of people leaving Texas came back within 5 years. Number 4, Wisconsin. Wisconsin boomerangs all start the same way. Winter, that's it. That's the reason. Snow, cold, darkness at 4:30 p.m. People don't leave Wisconsin because of politics, jobs, or opportunity. They leave because their face hurts in February. So they move somewhere warmer and immediately feel superior about it. They post sunshine photos, they mock coats, they tell everyone they've escaped. For a while, it feels like a win. Then they discover the trade-off. In other states, the power goes out because it rained. Roads disintegrate if temperatures change slightly. Hospitals feel optional. Local governments respond to problems with press releases instead of solutions. The weather's nicer, but everything else feels held together with optimism and duct tape. Wisconsin, meanwhile, just keeps functioning like it always has. Roads get plowed before you wake up. Power stays on during actual blizzards. Hospitals don't disappear. Towns don't reinvent themselves every election cycle. Wisconsin doesn't brag about this. It assumes competence is the baseline. Boomerang Wisconsinites come back with a completely different attitude toward winter and toward life in general. They're not tougher. They're just done being impressed by dysfunction. They notice that snowstorms in Wisconsin don't arrive as surprises. They're forecasted, planned for, and handled like something that has happened before because it has. Streets get cleared, schools know what to do. Nobody acts like the weather personally betrayed them. It's cold, it snows, and then everyone continues on with their day like adults. They also start appreciating utilities that don't require optimism. The lights stay on, heat works, water keeps flowing, there's no dramatic buildup, no apology emails, no vague, "we're monitoring the situation" updates. Things function quietly, which turns out to be the highest luxury of all. Then there's the emotional part. Wisconsin communities don't drain you. People aren't constantly on edge, performing or reinventing themselves. Conversations don't feel like debates. Daily life doesn't feel like a test. Existing doesn't require emotional stamina. Boomerangs finally understand the difference. Winter was annoying, but predictable. What broke them elsewhere was instability pretending to be normal. Wisconsin wasn't harsh, it was reliable. And once you've lived without reliability, snow becomes a minor inconvenience instead of a deal breaker. 5.3% of people leaving Wisconsin came back within 5 years. Number 3, Tennessee. Tennessee boomerangs are some of the most predictable in the country, mostly because the departure is built on optimism and the return is built on math. People leave Tennessee convinced they're leveling up. Bigger city, bigger paycheck, bigger sense of importance. They talk about opportunities like Tennessee was holding them back personally. Nashville was getting crowded. Knoxville felt too small. Memphis was complicated. Surely somewhere else had solved all of that. And for a little while, it looks like they were right. Then the invoices start arriving. Taxes don't just exist, they multiply. Permits become hobbies, rent jumps annually just to stay motivated. Every new city promises progress, but delivers friction. Growth turns out to be very real, but so is the collapse that follows it. Meanwhile, Tennessee just keeps going. Cities grow, but don't implode. Jobs expand but don't evaporate overnight. Roads get crowded, sure, but they still lead somewhere affordable. Former residents realized Tennessee was doing something sneaky the whole time, building forward without lighting itself on fire. Boomerangs come back to Tennessee with a brand new skill set. They can finally do math without getting upset. That no state income tax they shrugged off before? Suddenly it feels personal, not exciting, useful. It shows up quietly every paycheck, not as a talking point, but as money that doesn't vanish into a system they never fully understood. It's not a perk anymore. It's a relief. They also return admitting, internally, never out loud, that family mattered more than they pretended. Not in a sentimental way. In a practical way, people who can help, people who show up, people who don't require scheduling 3 weeks in advance just to exist in the same room. Turns out community is a lot more valuable when life stops feeling theoretical. Healthcare access hits differently too. Appointments are available, facilities exist. Getting care doesn't feel like negotiating a hostage situation with your bank account. It's not flashy, but it's present, and that turns out to be enough. And then there's the cities. Tennessee cities grew, but they didn't lose the plot. You can still get across town without packing supplies. Neighborhoods still feel like neighborhoods instead of development concepts. Growth happened, but it didn't erase scale. Boomerangs realized Tennessee didn't trap them before. It just didn't shout about what it was offering. And once you've lived somewhere that makes everything harder on purpose, Tennessee's quiet practicality starts looking intentional. Tennessee doesn't sell perfection. It never claimed to. It offers momentum, predictability, and a life that doesn't require constant damage control. And after experiencing places where growth comes with a warning label, people realize sometimes the upgrade was already home. It delivers momentum. 5.4% of people leaving Tennessee came back within 5 years. Number 2, Florida. The Sunshine State is where people don't just move away. They declare independence. The exit is loud, it's emotional, it involves a list, heat, hurricanes, crowds, insurance bills that look like ransom notes. Someone says, I can't do this anymore. Like Florida personally wronged them. Florida asks a lot. It sweats you out 9 months a year. It tests your roof annually. It charges you extra for the privilege of living near water that actively wants to reclaim your house. At some point, leaving feels less like a choice and more like self-care. So they go. They move north or west or anywhere with seasons and personal space. They brag about cooler weather and calm streets. They talk about how they can finally breathe again. Florida, they insist, was a phase. Then winter happens. Not a cute winter, a real winter. The kind that attacks your joints, your car battery, and your will to exist. Suddenly, Florida's humidity doesn't feel offensive. It feels forgiving. That brutal summer heat becomes, at least I wasn't shoveling snow. That hurricane anxiety becomes, well, at least the sun came back the next day. Boomerang Floridians don't come back starry-eyed or uninformed. They return educated, slightly traumatized, carrying spreadsheets like emotional support documents. They've learned the language now. Flood zones aren't vague suggestions, they're chapters. Insurance policies aren't paperwork. They're novels with plot twists. They know what wind mitigation means. They know which side of the street floods first. They've done the math, rerun the math, argued with the math, and then accepted the math. And after all that, they still come back. Because Florida gave them something other places never quite did. Light that isn't seasonal. Motion that doesn't pause half the year. A sense that life is happening right now. Not after winter clears, not after the thaw, not once the calendar gives permission. In Florida, people are outside by default. Mornings matter, evenings stretch, days don't feel like something you endure indoors while waiting for a better month. Life isn't postponed, it's already underway, whether you're ready or not. Boomerangs return knowing Florida will charge them for this. They accept that. They've stopped pretending it's a surprise. They're not gambling anymore. They're paying admission. Florida doesn't trick you the second time. It doesn't soften the deal. It just offers the same chaos, the same brightness, the same scale, and lets you decide if it's still worth it. And for a lot of people, even fully informed, it still is. Florida doesn't apologize. It doesn't improve itself to win you back. It doesn't lower premiums or calm the weather out of spite. Florida just keeps being Florida, loud, chaotic, expensive, and oddly irresistible. It doesn't forgive you for leaving, but it does unlock the door when you come back. 5.5% of people leaving Florida came back within 5 years. Number 1, California. The Golden State produces more boomerangs than any other state, and it's not even a fair competition. Californians don't just leave, they storm out. It's dramatic. It involves rent screenshots, gas prices, a tweet about taxes, and a long explanation about how they're done. The exit speech is polished, the frustration is real, the moving truck is booked with purpose, and honestly, they're not wrong. California is expensive, exhausting, and needlessly complicated. Everything costs more, takes longer, and requires at least 3 apps and a permit. A starter home costs what a small nation's GDP used to. Traffic turns simple errands into spiritual journeys. And the phrase cost of living here feels less like an index and more like a threat. So they leave. They move to states where houses are bigger, commutes are shorter, and people say things like, wow, that's cheap. For a while, it feels great. They post photos, they brag, they talk about how relaxed they are now. They tell everyone California was never really for them anyway. Then something happens. The food is fine, but not that good. The weather has opinions. The culture feels thinner. The diversity feels curated and slowly, inconveniently, emotionally. California starts creeping back into their thoughts. They miss the ocean without trying, the mountains without planning, the weird mix of people, ambition, creativity, and casual excellence that California just hands you without explanation. Boomerang Californians don't come back trying to justify the decision. They've already lost that argument. They're done pretending this is a smart move in any traditional sense. They accept the smaller homes without bargaining. The closets shrink. The garages become decorative. Outdoor storage becomes a personality trait. Square footage turns into a philosophical concept rather than a measurement, and somehow they adjust faster than expected. Longer commutes stop feeling like a flaw and start feeling like part of the deal. Time becomes the currency instead of money. They plan their lives around it, rationalize it, and eventually stop complaining. Mostly because complaining won't make traffic disappear. Luxuries get edited out quietly, fewer upgrades, fewer extras, fewer impulse purchases, not because they can't afford them, but because they've decided what matters more. They downgrade the stuff and upgrade the feeling of being where they want to be. At some point, the spreadsheets get closed, not solved. Closed, the numbers didn't change, the priorities did. That internal voice they ignored for years finally wins. It doesn't make a case, it doesn't negotiate, it just repeats itself until resistance feels pointless. Yeah, but this feels right. And in California, feeling right has always beaten being right on paper. California doesn't win on paper. On paper, it looks like a terrible idea. But California has never been about paper. It's about memory, familiarity, identity, and in the end, emotions beat spreadsheets every single time. Final thought, Boomerang states aren't perfect. They're forgiving. They're the places people leave chasing an idea, then return to once reality clarifies what actually matters. Stability, familiarity, community, and a life that doesn't feel like a constant strategy session. If people keep coming back, it usually means the place was doing something right all along, and they just needed to leave to realize it. 6.7% of people leaving California came back within 5 years. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.